Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 4 of our new little mini series called Remembering Coach Smolinski. He's just had such a dynamic influence on our community, and hopefully our episodes up to this point have helped rekindle some of those memories you had with Coach Smo. Today, we're bringing in another really special guest, 1993 graduate Tim Smith. Tim had a tremendous career while at Hamburg and then eventually later on at Canisius College as well. Tim was arguably maybe the best pitcher that's ever taken the mound at Howfield with a Bulldog uniform. Tim eventually landed at Gowanda and has been an uber successful coach while coaching baseball there at Gowanda. Today, he joins us to tell some great stories of playing for Coach Smo, and specifically his junior year. That 1992 team was maybe the best team that Hamburg's ever put out there. He'll talk about the big turning point that they had and how Coach Smo's personality kind of ignited that big turnaround. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we welcome in Tim Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, look at who we got in the house. Hamburg legend, 1993 graduate, Coach Tim Smith. And Tim, I can't tell you what, we've known each other for quite a while. And throughout that time, we've certainly shared some great stories about Coach Smo, but it means a little bit more tonight as we reflect on his passing and such. But before we really get into reminiscing and talking about Coach Smo, can you bring us up to date on your journey from when you graduated in 93 to what you're doing now?
Yeah, first, Coach Hill, thank you for having me on here. It's obviously with a heavy heart that we're talking about this subject tonight. Coach Smolinski was, a great man, and I guess as we get a little bit older here, these are the times that we reconnect for things like this. So it's it's tough, but yeah, again, thanks for having me. But it's one of those things. I graduated in '93 and ended up playing in college for 4 years. Graduated from Canisius College in '97. Went on and had a couple jobs. Always had the passion for baseball, and it's tough when you see baseball ripped away from you. When your college career is over with, and you think like, holy cow, it's you end here. And I always kind of said to myself, I wanted to stick with it somehow. Honestly, never thought that I would get into the coaching side of things at all. But an opportunity would arise a couple years later when I would go back and coach at Canisius College as an assistant for another 3 years. Would get my master's degree at that point, and lucky to get a job at. I've been teaching at Gowanda High School for the last 18 years now, and I've been the varsity coach there for 17 years. So I would say that the coaching bug kind of bit me there and has taken me, on a little bit of a ride, for these last almost 2 decades here.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's good stuff. And I think we've got lots of stories to talk about, your success as a player and now all the success that you've had at Gowanda. And that'll give us good reason to bring you back for a future episode here on our Bulldogs Connect. And you guys had some really, really special teams there during your time at Hamburg. And arguably, as you talk to the old timers, I think they'll put your 93 team up against, any team that the Hamburgs had. But we'll even back up maybe more before that. What was your first impression of Coach Smo as you were a youngster coming up through the program? And how did you get to know him initially?
I can remember trying out, baseball was a little bit different 30 years ago, 35 years ago than it is now as far as school teams where, unfortunately, in many cases, we're searching for enough kids to fill out a roster. Very rarely, especially in a small school, but, rarely are you making cuts anymore. And I think that was not the case back in the late 80s, the 90s when I came through, middle school, high school age, where there'd be 40 kids trying out for a team, and you had to go in, to school the next day to look at the list that'd be hanging on the gym door to see who was going to make the team and go to practice that day. And you see a lot of sad faces around and everything. And that's, always a tough part to see your friends get cut, things like that. But you always thought that are the coaches kind of backing out of this and just putting a sign up on the door to put it up there. But you come to realize after the fact that it's just as hard for a coach to have to cut a kid. Putting the paper on the wall, it's probably not something that we do these days. And it's a tough thing. But I think, again, it comes down to the old school side of coaches, and that's what they did. And it was, now we're going to pull a kid aside and say, this probably isn't the year for you. I wish you'd work a little bit harder and, see where it could take you, play a little bit more baseball or something like that. But, that's one of the first traits that comes out with me is that, Coach Smolinski was very, very old school. And, I can remember some of those first practices, playing modified baseball. And he would always come down and teach the guys, some of the smallest things like, you're representing Hamburg baseball. And that means that, you're going to wear your hat straight. You're not putting it on backwards. You're going to practice with baseball pants on. You're going to wear your uniform the correct way. It was all purple and white. You're not going to roll out there with a blue, long sleeve shirt under your jersey or something like that. It was, this is the way it was. It was old school. And you followed it, and it was like, okay, if this is the way it is, this is the way it is. And I guess, 30 years later, I come and find out that these are some of the traits that I've always carried through in my coaching days is that, if you're going to go out there and play baseball, and that's probably the biggest thing about Coach Smolinski, he wanted you to respect the game of baseball because he loved the game of baseball. And, that was him all the way through. I can remember him going through, a 20-minute session on how to blouse your pants into your stirrups and your socks all the same way so that you looked like, you deserved to be out there on a baseball field. So it was, and again, like you did it. And it was funny because he would always wear his purple ribbon stirrups that I always thought were, kind of old school, just like he was. But you kind of always wondered, they hand them out for uniform day and we get these ribbon stirrups. And we always thought like, man, what are these things? I'm a tall guy. So of course the pants always rode up about, between my knee and my ankle. So they just never fit right. And then I'm trying to blouse my pants into my socks just so that Coach Smolinski wouldn't call me out and say, what the heck are you doing with those socks like that today? So, things like that. It was, but like I said, you take it into teaching other kids, as you go through here that, you want to respect the game of baseball. And if you're going to go out there and have the privilege of going out in the field, play the part and do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. And it is funny, and we reflect now and we're both coaching, very similarly. So one thing that we really haven't been able to dive into with anybody else that I've talked to is what was the culture around the program in the sense of, what was the climate, during practices? Was it super ultra structured or was there more freedom to improvise than maybe we thought, or what was it like?
I always felt that, he called me up halfway through my sophomore year and played, up and down between JV and varsity, and then stayed up there with them for the end of the season and the playoff run. And, it was, I'd always, of course you're up there with wide eyes looking at all the kids that were 2 years older and everything. And you knew that he ran a structured practice. It was always going to be about the X's and O's. It was very organized. He wanted to do things and, make sure here we have a job to do today. We're going to get in there. We're going to get our job done. And then then you can go home. And that was always the big thing about Coach Smolinski is that he wanted you to, if you're going to be at the baseball field, if you're there for 2 hours, give 2 hours to the game of baseball. And that, that was a big thing. So, I guess as you get into our junior year and then our senior year, when you're the upperclassman, he knew that he had a talented group. And I think that as long as we would abide by, the practice plan and what he wanted to do, and we did the X's and O's, then, he would, he'd laugh and probably not get into our, some of our gimmicks and things that we would do, but he'd look at us and know what we were doing and give us kind of that little wry grin, out of the corner of his eye and everything. And that was always famous. But, it was that Coach Smolinski whistle that everybody knew. And you knew he was when you heard the whistle, in the middle of IO, you knew that he was in a good mood for something like that. And you knew that what the guys out there were doing it well. Yeah. And he'd just keep whistling. And then you knew it was going well. So I think you knew that you were going to please him if you heard the whistle. If you didn't hear the whistle, there was something wrong.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, that's outstanding. So let's dive in. The 93 season was the real good group.
Actually, it was still the good group, but we had our most success in 92 as juniors.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Walk us through that season.
I can tell you this: we ended up playing 27 games. We finished the season 17-10. So we had, played a good amount. But here, what I remember vividly about that is, Coach Smolinski was a stickler for you do not play basketball during the baseball season. In
Yes.
fact, don't jump up and try and hit the net. Don't touch a basketball. It was pretty much, and you kind of always would question it back then, like, why can't we play basketball kind of thing? And then you realize that if somebody sprains an ankle, and with the way baseball is in Western New York, you sprain an ankle, you're out for 2 weeks. You could potentially miss 10 games just like that, with rainouts and everything and the way it works. So again, maybe it didn't make sense to us back then and whatever. And but you look back now and you say, gosh, he's right. This is you can really kind of mess things up by making a bad decision on something like that. So and it's tough because we all know that there's players that are multi-sport athletes, and there's so many coaches in travel leagues and organizations and in any sport that want the kids to specialize. So, I think that Coach Smolinski always started to cringe at the ideas of some of that as time would go on. But I can vividly remember, and this is probably one of the crazier stories for him. And he's probably looking at me right now saying, I remember that like it was yesterday. We were 7-9. All right. So a team that finishes 17-10, we were 7-9. And it was we were rained out, and I remember we met inside of the high school gym, and I don't remember if we were gonna pull the batting cage out and hit or whatever it was, but I remember there being a basketball on the floor, and I don't remember, or maybe I do, and I'm just not going to say who it was. Somebody picked up the basketball, and of course, Smo walks into the gym at the time. The kid picks up the basketball and fires a 40-footer, and he lost it. And it was, and rightfully so, he lost it on us right there. We did not practice that day. And all I remember is him walking out and storming to his, probably his second favorite place in the Hamburg school district, maybe his favorite place, but that office that he was always famous for, going into the coach's office there. And not too many people, you probably have been in there. I've never been in there, whether it was him or, basketball coach Rob Orr was always famous for getting inside of the office, and whatever went down in that office, who knows? But he stormed into that office, and we were kind of looking around at each other, and we said, it was almost like that. It was, he had some words for us that I think we all took to heart at that point. And to make a long story short, we went on a 10-game winning streak from that time on, and that included our sectional run there into the sectional final, to which we ended up losing the sectional final to Lockport 1-0. Now, the game was over, the game was gone. And I think that was one of the biggest things about him too, is that, the next year, everybody came in with, high hopes. Here we are, this junior laden team coming within a run of winning the sectional championship. And it was, it's a foregone conclusion. We're going to do it again. We're going to be there again because we were all juniors, and, wait till next year kind of thing. And of course we were preseason, ranked number 1 and everything. And he told us, he knew right away that doesn't mean anything. And let us, understand that you still got to go out, that nothing was going to be given to us, that we had to go and earn all that. And, to have that opportunity to go there again. Unfortunately our senior year in 93, our semifinal loss was to Frontier. So probably, twice as tough to lose that game. But, a lot of valuable lessons in all of that. But the point is that day that a basketball was fired up, it really lit a spark for us. And I don't know if that was his, plan at that point. Here's my opportunity to try and light a spark under a group of kids that I know are talented enough. And now we've got to do something. But whatever it was that day, it worked. And we all kind of rallied together after that for a nice, what turned out to be about a 3-week run. Like I said, all the way to the sectional championship game. So
that
cool.
is tremendous. Yeah, I did not know that there was that kind of turnaround in that season. Wow. So eventually, you graduate, you head to Canisius and stuff. What kind of interaction did you have with Coach Smo after you graduated?
Honestly, I would say for the first, I think I ran into him for the first time after college in probably like my 10-year reunion, or right around the 10-year reunion, because I remember bumping into him somewhere in the village, and we had a small talk about, I can't believe it's my 10-year reunion, and he started to, say some things to me about baseball and everything. And, it was like the first time that we actually kind of caught up. I probably bumped into him at tops, JP Fitzgerald's, who knows, Mamos or something like that, here and there. But for the most part, it was, we didn't never really stopped and talked, really
Yeah.
as, coach to player or man to man, whatever you want to call it at that point. It was always, when I'd see him after that, small talk, hey, how you doing? How's your family? Everything. Because he was always interested in knowing how are you doing? How's your family? How are your parents? And, even when I saw him this summer, would ask me how my parents are still doing and everything, stuff like that. So, but I would say after that, it really kind of, I thought turned the corner, our relationship once I started to coach in high school. And, once I told him, I said, yeah, I ran into him at JP Fitzgerald's. I was there with my family saying, hey, Smo, I, haven't seen you in a few months, but I got the job. I'm coaching varsity baseball at Gowanda. So this is back in, the spring of 2004, would that have been? I don't even know, 2004. Okay. So he started to talk to me. That was almost like, kind of the arm around the shoulder thing. For him, it was more like, putting the arm up there like that. But he's like, I remember him saying things like, now you're going to see, now you're going to see, just kind of, little lines like that. And I was always kind of like, what are you talking about? And then I felt like in the last probably 15 years, I ran into him a lot more, and we would talk a lot more about life, about sports, obviously about baseball, more about the passion of him as a Buffalo sports fan, things like that. But and it's tough because you don't, I'm not going to say we never disrespected them, anything like that, but you don't appreciate what you have when you're there a lot of times. And, that's kind of some of those things that some of those times that you'd like to have back. And I'm sure it's the same for any teenager that goes out there. You don't really, tend to understand what you have there, especially when you had somebody with the passion that he had for the game of baseball, for, a bunch of teenage young men that were out there to play a sport that we all know that he loved.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Because as I was reflecting on this, we think Coach was real close to 30 years. We're trying to pinpoint, exactly when he became the varsity coach and stuff. But we're thinking it could have been as early as 74 now, and taking that to, all the way to 2002. But I mean, that type of longevity, is really rare these days,
For sure. Yeah,
and like you kind of hinted at, that's a lot of patience to, to work with, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys year after year. I guess is patience the key ingredient there, or what did you see in him that maybe would have predicted that he was going to be that successful for that long?
I would say, well, I guess you could probably look at his lifestyle. I mean, he was a lifelong bachelor that loved to travel the world, sporting events, things that, you and I would probably love to go out and be able to do anytime that we wanted to at a drop of a hat. But, I think that some of those things, baseball was probably his, the baseball field for Hamburg was probably his getaway. That's where he could go and relax in many cases and say, you know what, I'm going to, even though I don't have, whatever his plans were that night, maybe he had a round of golf or something. Well, now I get to go to the baseball field for a while. And he would always drop hints about his own baseball career. And we know that he was a Western New York Baseball Hall of Famer. We know that he, loved his Boston Town team that he used to always tell us stories about. And, some of the games up at Boston Town Park there, and how, 1,000 people would be lined up around the fence to watch the games, and him and his brothers and everything. So, it was always a passion for him, for sure. So, stuff like that. It's, I think that for him to be able to come to the baseball field, it was a passion for him, and he enjoyed it. I think there's, too many times I think we see coaches, especially in the high school ranks, that are coaching, and not only baseball, but any sport. And it's always unfortunate, I think, for the student athletes that, maybe they don't have a coach that truly loves the sport. Maybe they just, might have played, some summer league or something, might have bowled a few games, and all of a sudden they're the bowling coach because nobody else wanted to do it, or they're the baseball coach because there's nobody else wanted to do it, and a couple $1,000s extra looks good for him. And it's, like I said, it's unfortunate. That was never the case with him. He wanted to be on the baseball field and continue to share the passion that he had for the game long after his playing career was over.
That's awesome. Yeah, the real popular phrase today, of course, is, the grind, especially the players. And I think coaches alike, they talk about the grind and, and from what I can hear about Coach Smo, it was never, a job to show up to the ball field.
No.
So now I want to try to connect, your playing career to your coaching experience now. Has there been any revelations since you've been coaching about, you all of a sudden you're like, aha, like, that's why Coach Smo did it the way he did it, or, any type of like revelations like that?
Yeah, listen, I think you could probably find something if your eyes are open, you could find something every single day that you can equate to, all right, I understand that. And like I said, after I told him, and I would run into him and he'd ask me, how did you guys do this year? How are you guys doing this year? If it was in the middle of the season, and I would explain either, hey, we're a team to reckon with, or we don't have it this year, but I got a good group coming up or something. And he'd ask me, go into detail about questions and about kids. And he would always say, now you see why. Now you see why. And it was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. And like I said, it's really, you hear the news of this on Saturday morning, and you start to think to yourself about so many of the things that you do as a coach that are very reflective, and you understand that, man, I did this because I learned this at an early age, back when I was 14 years old with Coach Smo's program, and then carried it through all the way to the end of his program, and then carried it through into my playing days in college, and carried it through to my coaching days in high school. And still, I'll walk into the first day this year for kids that don't know me, and I'll tell them, hey, when we practice, you're wearing a go on the baseball shirt, you're wearing baseball pants. If you don't have that stuff, don't show up at the field. And that's, it's the message is from him, and it hasn't changed for me in 30 years.
Oh man. Well, holy smokes, this has been so good, so rich. I want to just kind of give you a chance to empty your pockets here, and any other memories or funny stories or sentimental stories that you might have of Coach Smo that we haven't hit on yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple big ones that I always, I think of Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan when they were on the march, and they're all griping about why they had to go save Private Ryan. And Tom Hanks says, gripes always go up the ladder, up the chain of command. And one of the famous things about I remember he told us we were going to get new uniforms, maybe our junior year, and we were all, oh, okay, cool, new uniforms. This is exciting. And I remember him, handing out the uniforms, and we were like a football team, an offensive line of a football team, because our numbers range from 61 to 83. So I don't know if the dungeon of the basement still has our uniforms from the early 90s there, but here we are, this baseball team rolling out there with like I said, the lowest number at whatever it was, 63 to 83, I don't know, 59 to 85. I mean, it was just kind of a joke. And I remember we questioned him. We said, hey coach, why are our numbers, like this? And, all I remember is him kind of looking at us like, he, didn't want to throw the administration under the bus for probably choosing this ridiculous set of numbers, but I don't know if they got a deal on the jerseys or something like that. But he didn't want to complain about it to us, and just kind of said, sometimes people make mistakes, and you knew that as a baseball purist, he's not putting the middle starting infield out there at number 64, 81, 77, and 52 or whatever it was, first base, second base, shortstop, third base. That just wasn't the way it was going to go. He's single digit guy, going all the way through maybe the teams or something like that. So that was always one of the funny ones, just seeing his reaction on that. But of course we wore those for, a couple of years. And I guess that's the only reason why I hold number 71 close to my heart, because that's what I wore in high school. So, there's a lot of 71s running around there at, on the baseball field.
We can say we've officially retired number 71.
All right, that's good.
We'll have that on the outfield fence here shortly.
There you go. I think it's funny because one of the other classic ones that I will always always remember. And, again, this is, going back to 15, 16, there was no travel baseball. So we were all playing our Hamburg Junior Baseball League games, playing whatever, 12, 13, 14 games a summer. That was it. Maybe the tournament at the end of the season. And that's all. And that's what we did. So, when we did have practice for in the summer, we didn't go to, nobody had batting cages or anything like that. The batting cage at Hamburg High was, the net on the wall with the jugs machine. And the jugs machine was whatever, 70 feet away, and he'd fire a ball in there, stand behind the machine. And that was, that's all it was. Every once in a while, a ball would ricochet off the machine. But when we get outside on the field, and sure enough, he'd line up there, put us up against the fence at Howe Field, and he's, goes out there at whatever, 55, 60 feet away, and he just had this machine of an arm, just kept going, throwing. And you're like, all right, every once in a while you take a line drive off the leg. And I don't even think at that age I knew what an L screen was. But what I knew was that Hamburg High never had an L screen. And I got to tell you, for all the days that I would sit there and thrown, probably the million balls that I've thrown to batting practice over the years, and every once in a while when you don't get your shoulder behind the L screen, and you wear it off the fatty part of your shoulder here, and it just hurts. And I'm thinking, this guy used to take line drives off the leg, the knee, he'd go down, but he'd get back up and keep throwing again. And you're like, man, you should get like a net or something. Didn't even know what an L screen was back then, but whatever it was, we should have got one because, and then you come to find out years later, you're like, Smo, how come you never had an L screen there? And he's like, I didn't need one, just keep throwing, and I got a glove, things like that. He always had an answer for something, but man, how he did that, I don't know. I mean, I just think of all the batting practice now, and I'll tell you, I don't think a day goes by that I get behind an L screen and think, how could he have done this for so long without, he did wear a helmet, I will say that, so he was somewhat protected.
Okay.
Although I think the one time I saw a ball ricochet off his helmet, he said something like, probably wouldn't have mattered anyway. I'd be better off if I just got hit in the head or something like that. But he, just never wanted that L screen. And I tell you, I think about that all the time, about how somebody could get behind, and especially with the way these guys hit today, and these balls coming right back at you at 100 miles an hour, pretty darn close to it. No thanks. I don't know.
If he coached, at least 25 years, I can't imagine the line drives that he took over that time, because, Rick Zambrano, that graduated 80, he said the exact same thing. They never saw an L screen either back then. So it wasn't, that is really unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's for sure. So, he was a classic, classic baseball guy, good person, and a friend that we've lost now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Well, let's put the exclamation mark on it here as we wrap it up. Ultimately, we're reflecting at this point. What is Coach's legacy? What's he going to be remembered most for in Hamburg?
I think first and foremost is the fact that, like you said, I don't think he was ever a guy that was into, was never into numbers. There's some coaches out there that are very much into how many wins they have. They want to let everybody know how many wins they had, stuff like that, how many championships they had. And, he was never that guy, probably, by the fact that you can't even figure out some of the records can't even figure out when his first year was or how long he's been there, because he never kept track of that stuff, because that stuff probably was secondary to making sure that we had a good experience as players, and that we ended up as good, as good men. And, that was always in some of the conversations we had, recently in the last, 5-10 years, he would always talk about, again, how's your family? How's everything? How's that? How are the players that I played with? Some of my best friends that we were reminiscing about this, Dan Rydholm, who, Dan's father, Dave, and Dave Smolinski were real good friends, real tight racquetball partners and everything. And unfortunately, now within a year, we've lost both of them. But talking to my friend Dave Cranston, who played with us back in, those years in high school, Trent Pendergast, all these guys that I grew up with, and are three of my best friends still, that we talk every single day about everything. But, these last couple of days, we've talked a little bit about Coach Smo and some of our Hamburg memories. And, it's tough, because you start to bring some of these memories back up that we can remember. And But yeah, I mean, just I'd say his passion and the fact that here's a guy that was a high school coach that stayed with it. You don't know how many years it was, but we know it was 25 and above. And for some of these schools that have such a a turnstile of coaches in and out, and lack of consistency for kids that are trying to come through a program or try to become better at any sport. The legacy that he leaves is the fact that what we've had in 40 years, then maybe even 50 years now, we've had 3 coaches at Hamburg High School. So that's a testament to you and to Steve Chafee and obviously Smo for carrying that through for quite a while here.
That is absolute audio gold there, my friend. That is priceless. We can't do it any better than that, so we better wrap it up right now. But thanks so much for jumping on tonight, buddy, and helping tell the story of who Coach Smo was and from your experiences. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing all the stories that come out of the woodworks over the next couple of weeks here. And of course, it's such a weird time. I think any other time, we're all able to get together and reminisce, kind of together, so to speak, and that won't be happening, at least shortly anyway. But anyway,
time.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he would have liked to have coached Nolan, that's for sure. I think he'd be certainly very pleased to see the type of ball player he's developed into, for sure. And it's sorry he won't be able to get to see him play these next couple of years. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, you guys take care, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon, buddy.
Okay, Derek. Sounds good.
All righty.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.